So I was born in White Plains, and then I predominantly came up in like Orange and Rockland County, which like Rockland County is like pretty close to the city, and then Orange County is a little further away, like an hour. Um, Basketball really became like the first three-peat I was kind of aware of, but when I really got into playing and like becoming a Bulls diehard was when he came back. Jordan came back the first time. And that was also around that, like my first Bulls jersey was the 45. And I think my first pair of Jordans was like maybe the nines. But my favorite pair of Jordans was the 11s, the Breads, black and red. And I remember cleaning them with Windex, like the patent leather, which made no sense, but like I didn't know any better. Because I was like so hardcore about those shoes. And like I was a diehard Bulls fan from really 94, 95 on. I remember being like crushed when we lost to the Magic, and then like having this little, as a fifth grader, having like a chip on my shoulder about what was going to happen next. And boy, did it happen.
Oh yeah.
And like hating Horace Grant, like just like,
Leaving and then
like
beating you guys.
yeah. And he he was like, to me, historically, has kind of become underrated because like when you everybody, especially a lot of these kids, when they talk about those Bulls teams, they always just, oh well, they had Rodman, and you're
Yep.
like, no, for the first three-peat they had this other guy who was like an all-star also, and a better offensive player, and was part of that Doberman defense. And like Horace Grant was a hell of a player, and
Yep.
like doesn't, in retrospect, I don't hate him, and I really respect what he did. You know,
I'll tell you what,
uh,
it tells me you know your shit because Horace, if you I had Dennis Hobson on the program. He played in the 91 team. So the first Jordan team to win it all. And he was off their bench. He was a backup shooting guard. And him and several other guys that played in that era always said that, like first of all, that first three-peat team was really good. And no one
yeah,
understands that. You said they're kind of swept under the rug. Every time someone brings Chicago up, like you mentioned, it's always the Rodman era, which was great, obviously. But I've heard from several players who played against those teams that the 92 team was the best out of all of them, out of all six. Now, I don't know how we'll never, that's a debate that can go on for decades, but that's what I've been told, that the 92 team would have beaten the Rodman teams. Now, how true that is, we'll never know.
I mean, they won 67, I think. Then I've heard that argument. I believe it was Bill Simmons who thinks the 91 Bulls were the best Bulls team. Um, but I mean, the difference, right? Like a hardcore difference, besides Grant being kind of more of a two-way guy, was even more shooters between like what, I forget what year BJ's rookie year was, but they always had a second shooter to accompany Paxson, whether it was like Hodges or somebody else.
Yep.
So they had like Kerr was outstanding, but they had like two great shooters. The X factor, I guess, when you go second three-peat, you got a guy like Harper who, while he had lost some athletically, was still sacrificing a great deal to focus on, like he still could have gone somewhere else and gotten 17, 18, but he sacrificed for the greater good, and the triangle gave him another kind of tall, lanky disruptor. And then you had Kukoc, who was like, you look at the modern NBA, like Kukoc was a cheat code kind of doing it back then, could really play 1 through 4. Like that's why I kind of like, and then it comes down to whether you choose like athletic peak Jordan and Pippen versus like most cerebral, locked in Yoda-esque versions. Like, which one do you like better? I slightly edged 95, 96 just as they were like nothing. They wanted to kill everyone, and
They did.
and they did.
And they did.
So.